Hi, I'm Daniel Fisher here at GearFest 2022 at Sweetwater. I'm here with Lisa Bella Donna. We have a history of programming synthesizers, so they thought it would be fun if we just kind of chatted about some of our methodology, as it were.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Sure. So let's start with pure synthesizers. So what's like some of your strategies when you're on a pure synthesizer, as opposed to say, something with ROM or, samples and things?
Pure synthesizers, I like to try to strive for multi-timbral ideas. Even if it's a simple idea, I like one thing to flow out of the next and just try to have a nice, interesting stereo image, musical drama, all of those kinds of things inspire my pure synthesis. How about you, Daniel?
Well, me? So here's a little plug for my video series. If you watch my Synth Clips series, the thing that I do for when I'm programming pure synthesis is I always start out with an init. I never want to be programming on somebody else's programs, because inevitably some modulator you want is going to be used up and you touch it and it wrecks something else you like. It's like I start from init. And then I always put all the knobs in the init position, so I'm looking at what I'm listening to.
Absolutely.
And then I'll move one parameter. It doesn't matter which one I move, but I move it if I like that motion. I try to find the minimum that I like. I try to find the maximum I like. And then I just decide what controller that I have available will I use to modulate it exactly between those 2 points, whether it's an LFO or velocity, an envelope, aftertouch, a ribbon, pedal, it doesn't really matter. The trick then is to just always set it so that when the pedal or velocity or ribbon is at its minimum, the thing you like, that minimum, is exactly in that right spot. Absolutely. And then when you do max on whatever those are, then it goes to that. And I find if you do that enough times, to every parameter you have your hands on the synth, that will be a very interesting patch, because it always responds to all of your motions and it never goes out of range.
Absolutely. I like to use envelope generators more than just full cutoffs. I like to blend filters and use key triggers for LFO, filter, pitch, just to add that sort of touch response. If you're going to play a keyboard, or if it's a sequencer, then take some steps and use that through a slew limiter to trigger an envelope just for momentary LFO or filtering.
And I watched your show last night. I saw that you were using a sample and hold on a ramp wave, whereas most people typically just use sample and hold to get random. It really was originally invented to make these beautiful steps, and you were doing that beautiful wind chime sound with it.
Thank you.
And one of my tricks, it's not really officially part of the synthesizer, but at the end of the chain, if I can get one, I will put a stereo ping pong delay.
That's where you and I are kindred spirits.
And for those of you out there that say you have a stereo delay, if it's just because you can do like quarter notes on one side and half on the other, that's not stereo. That's left, center, or right, center. It's not left, right. It's a very particular thing. But when you get that, and I love to sweep a very low sawtooth through a resonant 4-pole low-pass filter, and you get that.
Oh yeah.
Nothing else quite like that.
Throws all the phase and creates that dimension that makes you feel like you're a part of the sound, or you're a part of whatever the environment is that you are trying to evoke on a synthesizer.
And then if that delay also has LFO modulation, a slightly modulated ping pong delay, you're done. Like, you have all the effects you need. You've got just an amazing stereo palette. You've got something close enough to reverb. You got something with the delays that's adding almost an arpeggiator chord type effect to what you're doing. So that is definitely in my bag of tricks. So now let's talk about ROMplers.
Okay.
And I know you program pure synths more now than ROMplers, but back in the day, we both programmed a lot of ROMplers for people.
You bet.
So what tricks do you do for a ROMpler?
The bottom line for me would just be mixing and getting as much distance and depth out of a collection of sounds or layers, or animated movement with envelope generators, especially in stereo situations. Being able to do things where you send things out to effects at a later, delayed envelope, for instance. You start with one sound, and then, as that sound starts to conclude, a whole other sound comes in that's brilliantly, beautifully layered in effects, things like that. Like I said, again, very multi-timbral is my vibe.
So for me, for ROMplers, one of the first things I always do is I print out the key map list.
Okay.
And sometimes that's 8 pages of, but then I get a big pack of colored markers and I go through every one and I kind of have a color scheme in my head already.
Sure.
Orange is organ for obvious, and so I'll go through all the organs and like a lot of them I don't like, and there's a couple I do like. I highlight them in orange. I have a different color for pianos. I have a different color for strings, a different color for each of the different sound categories, so that when it's time to build a patch, I can just look for all the orange and I can find all my favorite organs very quickly.
Sure.
The other thing is I always try to take existing samples, and earlier I said ROMpler, and what we mean by that is a synthesizer that's based on samples that are in ROM. So it's a sample player, but it's playing ROM, it's not RAM, you can't load your own, blah, blah, blah. So one of the tricks I always do is take almost every sample I can find and see what it sounds like slowed down as far as you can, and you'll take something that sounds like a rain stick and you slow it down far enough and it sounds like barrels underwater bumping into each other. There are a lot of times you'll find something in ROM just bent either way high or way low out of its range, and it's like, wow, I could use that for this. Then same thing, I have a special highlighter that it says, hey, and watch for speed, to do something with speed, and then I write what I wanted to do.
Sure.
And then a last one is you can make an amazing stereo patch by taking the same key map left and right, but timbre shifting it so that the left and right samples are different samples. So the one on the right actually a sped up lower sample, but the one on the left is a slowed down faster sample. You bring them into pitch, and the amazing thing about the human brain is as long as you give it 2 things that are similar but different in each ear, your brain makes this huge stereo sphere out of that. And so it's just a great way to get stereo patches out of things is same key map, turn the pitch up, but then shift the transposition, and on the other one, turn the transposition down, but shift the transposition up. And if you do it just right, every key will have a different sample on left and right. That's another one of my tricks.
Back in the day, I used to really love to use the Yamaha TX816, which that's not really a ROMpler, but the idea of the way that you do sound design with it is very similar in terms of how you can animate these sort of parameter value sequences, if you will. Not necessarily like sequence as we think of it now, but just being able to take things and change semitones over the course of the envelope of a patch, or just the longer you play something, the more it will get out of tune, the more that you can spread it in stereo, or the more you can make it feel like it's spreading in stereo just by changing the harmonics.
And the Yamaha FM envelopes were always so much better than a standard ADSR because you could start on a value above 0, you could end on a value above 0, and any of those things could take on any role in between.
Filter, amplitude, pitch,
anything.
Yeah, that was
and the ability to key track like with elbows.
Yeah.
I wish every synth had that.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite synths of that era.
So hopefully it gives you some ideas on how we tackle synth programming chores. I mean, there's nothing better than to just do it a lot. Whenever you can, just sit down. One key thing is have a synth ready to go so that when you're ready to program, you sit down, either put the headphones on or turn the monitors on, turn that synth on, and the next thing you're doing is programming. Because if you spend too much time setting it all up each time, the magic's gone.
Yeah, that I feel also with modular synthesizer is one of the best ways to build your chops and to develop a rapport with the instrument, is to either download a patch sheet if it has one, or create one that's customized to your own needs, and sit down every day and just tell yourself, I'm going to make 5 patches, and get to that point where you make something that's just really banging and you don't want to take it out, but do it. Best thing you can do is take all those cables out and start over, because you're going to find something new every time that you get into it.
And every time you make a patch, give it a name, like right away. Don't just call it synth number 1, number 2, number 3, because I promise every patch you ever made, someday you'd be like, man, where's that patch that sounds like a tin can? And if you didn't name it tin can, you'll never find it.
Yeah, study 225.
Exactly. So hope you all enjoy. Lisa's going to be doing some more stuff in the Moog area. We're going to be doing some more stuff in the synth area, which is fantastic. Thanks to everybody who helped get that set up. It really is very cool.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Daniel.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sweetwater.